Narcissistic parents love to talk about how much they sacrificed and everything. But honestly, if we gonna be for real, the people that truly had to sacrifice was the children. What we had to sacrifice was our lives, our childhood, our time, our energy. We had to sacrifice all of that so that the parent could have their needs to be met. We had to sacrifice our childhood where our developmental years, middle school, high school years, being involved in what the parent wanted us to be involved in, or if we weren't involved in anything at all and we were just in the house the whole time, that was us sacrificing our childhood. Because narcissistic parents, they have no remorse for ruining their children's lives, for ruining their childhood, for depriving their children of their childhood. And the thing is, because narcissists are like one track minded. What they focus on and what they want, it's like they will stop at nothing until they can get it. They don't care who they use, who they abuse, who they take advantage of, who they exploit, or who they extort, as long as their needs are being met. So for the narcissist, when you all were children, when you had a narcissistic parent, the entire time of your childhood, you were being used and taken advantage of so that your narcissistic parent can have their needs met, because your parent had a need that needed to be met. They needed supply. So that need was being met. They were given all of that supply. And they weren't worrying about how it was making you feel or how you thought about it, how just your experience. It didn't matter. Your feelings didn't matter, because you were used as, your feelings didn't matter, and your feelings were disregarded. It was invalidated. Your feelings were not even taken into consideration, because when your parent wanted to do what they wanted to do, they cared more about their getting their supply than your own feelings. And they basically just looked at you like, well, toughen it out, suck it up, you'll be fine, you'll be okay, without knowing the damage that it was really doing to you. And that's why at the time they're thinking that they're doing something fine, and they say, oh, well, I did this for my child, I did this for my daughter, I did this for my son. No, that's bullshit. The narcissistic parent does what they do for themselves. And if they're ever doing anything for their child, it's so that the parent is getting something out of it in some type of way. Especially when a child is doing something or involved in something that the parent seems to be more intrigued with, more interested in, more involved in, more excited about, more into it. When the parent is very into it, but the child does not seem like they're very into it, that's how you know you have a parent living vicariously through their child. Because it's like, it's one thing if a parent has, they have already gone down this path and they found such great joy in it. And it's, of course, one thing a parent may want their child to go down their own, like, follow in their footsteps and go down the same path that the parent went down. But it's like, that's a little bit different because the parent has already went down that path. And sometimes, parents can be like, yeah, I kind of want you to follow in my footsteps to do what I do, but it's not necessarily like in an abusive thing, like, but that's different. But when you have parents that have never done something, they've never experienced something, and because of their missed opportunity, now they're forcing their child to do it, that's how you know that it's more so for the parent than it is for the child. Like, you think of those parents, like those mothers that put their children in pageants and, modeling and printing and acting and just putting them all out there. The parent, that mother, she never was like in modeling or acting or, in pageants or anything like that. She probably never did that. And she wanted to, but she didn't have the opportunity, probably didn't have the resources, whatever the case was. So now she has a daughter. So now what she's going to do is she's going to put her daughter through all of the pageants and prints and all of that kind of stuff, just so that she can have a child, a version of herself that can say, I've been doing this since birth. I've been doing this entire time. I've been in pageants. I've done all of this. Just so that because what it is like it's for the parent, so that the parent can have that ego satisfaction of look at what I've created, and look at what they can do, look at what they do. They're doing everything that I wanted to do, that I didn't get the chance to do. And a lot of these parents, they're not going to admit that that's the real reason as to why they're doing it. Because when a parent sees their child as an extension of themselves, as pretty much another them, then that's when, and they look at their child as not their own separate person, but just another version of me, then they feel like, okay, well, my wants and needs are your wants and needs because you're an extension of me. But parent has to realize that your child is half of you. They are half of their mother and they are half of their father. Okay? But your child is their own individual person. They are their own person, their own life. They have their own, agenda, their own, hopes and dreams and goals and aspirations. And it's not always going to be identical to their parents or even similar to their parents. Some people are going to just go on a totally different route than what their parents went on. But that's okay, because people are their own individual person. But when parents, narcissistic parents, have children, it's not so that they can raise up their own individual, like raise up a child to be their own individual person and to go out there and be successful and branch out and leave the nest. No. Like narcissistic parents talk about they want their child to leave the nest, but it's really because they just don't want to be bothered with their kids. Narcissistic parents, they have their children and then they throw their kids to daycare all day so that they don't have to be bothered with them. They'll send their kids to school, or they'll put their kids in activities so that they're involved in certain things after school, so that they have school, they have their extracurriculars afterwards, and then they come home and they barely were spending time at home. They barely were spending time with their parents. The parent was barely spending time with their child because the parent is able to just go on and live their life while their kids are occupied. And then they force their kids to go off to college to do something where it's like, if you don't want to, or they may, whatever it is, that they may force their child to do something when they graduate high school, like because they once again want to get their kids out of their hair. Like, when you're 18, you don't need to be living in my house anymore. You need to go be off at college and be there for 4 or 5 years, and then get a job, get your own place, and then you won't have to be around me anymore. A lot of these narcissistic parents, they had children not for the joy of having children, the joy of being a parent, being able to have people in their life that they love and spend time with and watch them grow. Like, they didn't have kids for that. They had it for the aesthetic. They had it to satisfy their ego, because their ego was for it, but their soul was not truly for it. Like, their ego was into it for egoic reasons, for superficial reasons, but their soul was not into it. That's why it's like you don't have a soul connection between you and your parent. You and your narcissistic parent, their heart is not into it. That's why you don't really have much of a heartfelt connection with your narcissistic parent. The only time that you could see them having a connection is, you all may bond over superficial things. Or if you're a child of a narcissistic parent, you love the parent so much because that's all you've had was your parent, that of course you're going to love your parent, even despite all of the neglect and all of the abuse, because that's all you knew. You didn't realize growing up, you're loving this parent this whole entire time without even realizing that you're being abused and neglected and abandoned the entire time. So of course that love is going to be there, and you're going to project a lot of the love that you have for them onto them, hoping that they can be who you want them to be, but they will never be what you want them to be. So the love grows stronger when you're a child, but once you're an adult and you wake up and you realize and you're aware of how fucked up they raised you, they brought you up, it's really gonna take a toll on you. And you're gonna have moments where you're gonna look back and think how much you missed out on and how much they failed you. And you realize that you deserve so much better. You deserve so much more. But right now, you're at a point in your life where there's been a bunch of dominoes falling. I can't stop the fact that all of that fell. Now I just have to pick up the pieces, clean up the mess, and make a life and living for myself. Make a life of myself despite all of that. I'm pretty much starting over. And it's a very scary thing, and it's gradual, but you can do it because you deserve so much better.